Okay, we'll go ahead and call the October 13th Sherwood School Board meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. And with that, we'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we will move on to the consent agenda, which is just a group of routine items that don't require additional discussion. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the consent agenda passes. Thank you. And moving right along, we have a section in our meeting called Spotlight On, and I would like to welcome Mr. Mitchell from Sherwood High School to the podium. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Cordy, Chair Hecker, Board of Directors. It is my privilege, and on behalf of Sherwood High School, we're proud to announce that Sherwood High School senior Max Libman has been named as a National Merit semifinalist. So I'd like to share a little bit about the National Merit Program and then a lot about Max. So approximately 16,000 students nationwide were selected for this program. They'll have the opportunity to continue in the competition for 7,500 National Merit Scholarships worth $30 million that'll be awarded next spring. Semifinalists must fulfill several requirements to advance to the finalist level of the competition. About 95% of the semifinalists are expected to attain finalist standing, and about half of the finalists will win a National Merit Scholarship. So it's quite the achievement, and so we're very proud to have Max attain that. A little bit about Max, a lot about Max actually. The main way to get into this is through your SAT scores. Prior to the pandemic, it was through your pre-SAT scores, which is a little bit different program and scored a little bit different. But with the pandemic and the timing with when Max would be taking the pre-SAT, he wasn't able to. So he took the SAT last year and scored a 1550 out of 1600. And that was in May. So he hadn't even started his senior year of high school yet. He carries a 4.0 unweighted GPA and a 4.442 weighted GPA. He's looking at going to the University of Oregon to study biology and biochemistry, with hopes to become a doctor when he gets done with all of that. Max is very, very big into our AP program. He's taken 5 AP classes so far, and he's attained a perfect 5 out of 5 on every one of those AP exams, which has earned him a distinction or a title of AP Scholar with Distinction. So that's quite the award from College Board. He's currently, this baffles me, I can't even take one of these classes. He's in AP Calculus, AP Biology, and AP Government at the moment. So he'll be in all 3 of those throughout the school year. Outside of academics, Max is the president of the speech and debate team, and he and his partner won the district competition last spring. So that was pretty cool. He is on the activism club as well as the chess club. One thing that has really been a big help this year, he's also in Link Crew. So he really helped our freshmen make that transition this year, which was, of all the years, has been the most important. And Max was right there in the middle of all of it. And then exciting, he is starting his first year on the tennis team this year. So very, very proud of Max, well-rounded young man, and we wish him the best of luck as he moves through this exciting time. Congratulations.
Congratulations and thank you, Max, and congratulations to your family as well. Amazing accomplishments, and really glad you're representing Sherwood for sure. So appreciate you coming. Okay, the next portion of Spotlight On, I'm going to ask Ms. Salm, Ms. Johnson, and Ms. Carroll to come up for the pre-K program.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Cordy, Board Chair Hecker, and board members. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about our new pre-kindergarten program at Sherwood Schools. All right. So we'll talk a little bit about the benefits of early learning, our partnerships and funding for the program, our philosophy of education within the program, and then our principals are going to talk a little bit about the Ridges pre-kindergarten and the Hawksview pre-kindergarten. All right. As you probably know, there are many benefits to early learning for our students, and research shows that children attending pre-kindergarten programs like ours are better prepared for kindergarten and school than similar children who have not attended pre-K. This is a time when children learn fundamental skills and understandings about the world. Some benefits include overall school readiness, positive social emotional skills and the development of those, the development of self-regulation skills, and they really have the opportunity to develop cognitive and communication skills during their pre-kindergarten years. Although the early learning years are not the only years when children develop these skills, we do know that their brains are growing so rapidly during this time that it is one of the most opportune times to be teaching these skills. All right. Our early learning program is really a partnership with a variety of organizations, including the Northwest Regional ESD, the Washington County Early Learning Hub, Sherwood Schools, and each of these partnerships use a braided funding system. So in order to offer the program, we braid our funds together. So the Northwest Regional ESD provides opportunities for students who are receiving early childhood special education services to participate in the program. And the Washington County Early Learning Hub provides funding so that students who are facing economic scarcity get to participate in the program. And all of this really is not just a braided funding system, but a braided education system. So students who have a diverse array of peers learn and grow from each other. And then on top of that, hosting the program in our district, in our school sites, really gives all of our students who attend the pre-kindergarten program the opportunity to learn what school looks like at Ridges and what school looks like at Hawksview. And so when they attend kindergarten, it isn't new to them, but they know the teachers, they know the staff, they know how to walk into the building. So they really learn all these key things that make them more school ready. Okay, our philosophy of education is built on purposeful play. And the key word in this is really purposeful. So our teachers use play, games, movement, and music to teach social and emotional skills, literacy, mathematics, and art. These playful learning activities really complement explicit and direct instruction in mathematics and literacy. We focus on things like learning through play. So you'll notice in the picture, we have a young learner who is creating the number 4, but she's doing it with peers and she's using Play-Doh to do so. So every activity around learning is done in a playful way. And the reason why we do this is the research indicates that, students really at this age retain information better when they do it through play. And now that you know a little bit about the program, I'm going to introduce Miranda Johnson, our Ridges principal. not pre-kindergartner, to share with you a little bit about the Ridges program. All right. Good evening, Dr. Cordy, Board Chair Hecker, Board of Directors. It's an honor to be here tonight to share with you a little bit about our Ridges Pre-K. This is our first year that we've had Pre-K at the Ridges, and it has been so exciting for me to just be able to stop in and see these youngest learners just really embracing school and all that it has to offer. On this slide here, you can see a few pictures from our program. There in that picture on the right is Mrs. Derry. She is our pre-kindergarten teacher at the Ridges, and she does an amazing job of incorporating that playful learning into everything that our pre-K students are doing throughout their day. In that picture in particular, she's doing some welcome songs with students to kind of greet them to the carpet space and get them up and moving before they start a little lesson. The picture in the middle is our new reading space within the pre-K classroom, full of all kinds of new books and items for our students to use to engage in early literacy. And then there on the left are some self-portrait artwork pieces that our students made in the first week of school. On this second slide here, you can see a few pictures of our students engaging in some exploratory learning through play. And these activities are especially a really great foundation for our STEM program that our students will be participating when they start in kindergarten and continuing through K-5. So these open-ended play activities and hands-on learning opportunities will really help set the stage for future learning throughout their years at the Ridges. And then additionally, we are finding both at Ridges and at Hawksview just the really great benefits to our pre-K students of having older students modeling behavior and how a school system works. And so it's really unique in that pre-K situation that we also have K through 5 students in our building. And so our kids are able to model and see kind of what school looks like and watch those older learners throughout the day. And then also just for both of Hawksview and Ridges, that opportunity to get into our building and kind of learn the ins and outs of our spaces and where things are located, so that, as Marlene said, when they join us as kindergartners, it won't feel so new, and they'll really know where to go and feel like they have a really great handle on that. We're excited to have this addition to our program this year, and we're really looking forward to this continued growth for our pre-K learners as they continue through the Ridges. At this time, I'm going to introduce Ms. Salm to talk a little bit about the Hawksview program.
Good evening, Superintendent Cordy, Board Chair Hecker, and Board of Directors. Like Ridges, our pre-K classroom is centers based, as you can see in the photo. The first one, the students are enjoying all of the books in the little reading center. Looks like they know exactly what they're doing. In the other photo, the students are focused on a letter of the week. And when this one was taken, the letter was A, and she has her little recipe and all the fixings, and she's making a little apple pie. In the next photo, this little guy here is investigating leaves in their light board station. And then finally, we have a pair of students who are working at the block station to build a tower. And a huge benefit of pre-K that both Miranda and Marlene talked about is that the kids get to learn some of those really important social skills that will help them be successful in school, working together, playing together, learning to share, just some of those really important skills. And these two were so excited when they got finished. The little guy at the end looked at their tower and said, "Wow, you go, girl." An added bonus of pre-K is that the principal always has a place to go to find a little joy. You never know what they're going to say, and everything is new and exciting to them. And so at the end of the day, at their circle, they have a circle where they talked about their highlight for the day. And one little guy ended the day today saying, "I loved everything about school today, almost more than pizza." So that is our presentation. Are there any questions?
How many students are enrolled in pre-K right now?
There are 12 at Hawksview, soon to be 13, and I believe that Ridges has 17.
Awesome.
Do we have capacity for more kids, or do we have a waiting list currently?
I'm going to let you answer that because we do have capacity for more.
So yes, we do have capacity for more. Currently, with the partnership with the Northwest Regional ESD, we have to reserve 10 slots for students who receive early childhood special education services. Those slots get paid for by the Northwest Regional ESD. This is particularly important this year. And the reason why is because throughout the pandemic, students were maybe not getting referred like they normally would through the early childhood special education program. And so they have reserved those slots in case referrals come up. We are also able to refer students, and then through Child Find, you can refer students. And so we anticipate that there will be more less openings as the year goes by, not more openings, less openings.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you sharing. Oh, sorry, did we miss one? Go ahead.
I just had a quick question. Are you guys planning on expanding the program to the other elementary schools, or will it just stay with the two for now?
So yeah, our hope is to expand to the other elementary schools. Our hope is also that we can tap into some additional funding throughout Oregon through the Preschool Promise Program. They've expanded their funding kind of limits, whereas Sherwood, because it's funded by city, not necessarily school district, we didn't really qualify for that funding, but based off of the new kind of rules around that funding, we should probably be able to qualify, which means we could potentially offer some additional free or reduced income slots at those other schools. And that would make that more viable for us to offer the program at Archer and Middleton.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, and with that, we will move on to reports, and I will turn the mic over to Dr. Cordy.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I have a couple of things to share in my report this evening. You likely know that October 18th is the timeline imposed on districts for the employee vaccine mandates. And so I want to give you an update about what that looks like in the Sherwood School District. So we have 623 staff members. We had one staff member qualify for and was granted a medical exception. And 30 staff members requested religious exceptions, and those were granted. So right now we only have 2 classified employees that haven't either turned in vaccination documentation or an exception form. And so Mr. Emmert and his team are just working. They have been engaged in ongoing conversations with those 2 staff members and continue today and beyond about the possibilities moving forward. And one of the things that they're talking about is the option of an unpaid leave of absence as an option for a next step. And so we'll keep you apprised of that, but I just really want to affirm Mr. Emmert and his team for their diligence in really reaching out to folks and helping through that process. The most challenging to monitor through that is the really large group of volunteers that are working directly with students, and our administrative assistants and teams in our schools are working really hard on that. And we're really close to the finish line on those too. So it's good to report that. Last and certainly not least, I really want to acknowledge Ella, and who is our student representative here on the board. And Ella, all of your leadership colleagues and your classmates for the Rainbow Out event that was held at our October 1st football game. The leadership with, and alongside the Newburgh students to really create an event that honors our LGBTQ plus and people of color in both communities is truly to be commended. When we have students come together and really provide an example what amazing leadership can be that's really steeped in kindness. I think it says a whole lot about our students and about who you are when that can be the example for our community. I just want you to know, and I want all your classmates and colleagues to know truly how proud of you I am. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. And we'll move down to Ella.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you all for having me. I'm proud to represent the student body at this meeting. We've had a very busy start to our school year, and we're looking forward to a ton of really fun things. This week is our homecoming week. So we have our spirit week, our lip sync, our hall deck, our big football game on Friday, and our dance on Saturday. And we have had amazing sales for our dance. Everyone is really excited to have this sort of normalcy. And we've had really great participation in Spirit Week, which has been really fun to see. We've also been really busy in our community outreach. Our blood drive is next week, and we are almost at our goal of donors. And last Thursday, we hosted a fundraiser for the Skills Center, and we partnered with Menchie's, and we also had an Amazon wish list that almost everything was purchased on it. And then we are also in the process of looking for our Sparrow for this next year. And then, as Dr. Cordy was saying, we're super excited to announce that we received the Oregon Student Section of the Week for our Rainbow Out on October 1st. It was really great to see our student section so spirited and standing in solidarity with our BIPOC and LGBTQIA+ community of Sherwood and Newburgh. So I appreciate everything that you guys are doing for us and how you guys create a great safe space for everyone in Sherwood.
Thank you. Director Nyangaro.
Nothing to report.
Dr. Adamson.
I just want to congratulate all the Sherwood teams that are just killing it out there this season and doing an outstanding job, sending positive thoughts to the volleyball team that may clinch the league title tonight. And just want to, on a personal note, say how proud I am of the Sherwood Marching Band that took first place in both its division and overall last Saturday at their competition.
Awesome. Director Thorn.
I have nothing to report.
Director Hawkins.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, I'll be brief. I don't want to hold this up. I just want to say it's super exciting to see everything moving and happening at the high school and all throughout the districts, just to drive through town and see people coming and going from school and just, getting back to some sort of normal. I mean, thank heavens, it's just super exciting to see and to know that, rain or shine, you guys are having a homecoming dance is just exceptional. So thank you for everything you're doing and just appreciate it and really excited. And it's not a surprise the marching band did that well, but it's super fun to see. So that's it for my report. And with that, we will move on to public comment. Tonight it's been received electronically and will be read aloud by Ms. Andrade and Mr. Rose. It's just a chance simply for the board to hear from the public and comments, and it's not a time for us to respond. Each public comment will be given the 3 minutes, and anything that were to go over will still be added to the public record. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Andrade.
Stacy Robertson, Stellar Drive. There have been reports in the news about schools having inappropriate, sexually explicit books in their school libraries. We would like a list of all the books that the Sherwood DEI director is bringing into our school libraries and what is being removed. In the name of transparency, please provide a public list of all book titles. There is no reason that we should not be able to see this information. It's a simple list. Parents have a right to know what library books are being presented and available. Thank you. Robert Guth, Fisk Terrace. As president of the Renaissance Crest HOA, directly across from Sherwood High School, I speak for our homeowners on Orchard Hill Lane and Fisk Terrace. Parents parking in our posted no parking zones on these streets are creating extremely dangerous traffic issues while dropping off students or waiting to pick up students. Both streets are narrowed to a single lane during these times. In addition, parents waiting in the afternoon back up across the driveways of homes in this area. Traffic on Orchard Hill, Bouchon Terrace, and Fisk Terrace has substantially increased. Students have been observed crossing Elwert Road at Orchard Hill, even though there are posted crosswalk closed signs, and the crosswalk at Hayde is less than 200 feet away. The posted speed on Elwert is 45 at this location. Winter weather, reduced visibility, and students darting across 3 lanes of traffic are an accident waiting to happen. We have observed that the school zone lights from the roundabout to Orchard Hill are not operational during peak student activity. These need to be activated and the school zone extended west to at least Hanley. Another concern is eastbound traffic on Elward Road turning left onto Orchard Hill must do so from the traffic lane, crossing 2 turn lanes from for Hayde. Speed, congestion, students, high traffic volumes, and distraction make this dangerous. You may recall that we petitioned last year to change this intersection to a right in, right out to address this very issue, which was rejected. I understand the school has taken some steps to address these issues, but notices to parents and students is a temporary solution that must be repeated multiple times throughout the year and every year going forward. I asked the school board to direct their traffic consultant to come up with a permanent solution, working with Washington County. Sherwood High School needs to be a good neighbor. I have made both the Sherwood Chief of Police and the patrol captain aware of our concerns and have asked for additional enforcement until a permanent solution can be implemented. Thank you.
Dr. Jeff Lee, Stonehaven Street, Sherwood. As of today, I have found nothing published on the website regarding the goals, objectives, role, governance, or any other information about the diversity, equity, and inclusion position. As I have previously noted to this board, I have my reservations and concerns regarding the Equity Visioning Committee and the associated DEI position. I find it quite concerning that nothing has been published, posted, or outlined about this position or what specifically the director was hired to do. Because nothing has been published, it is reasonable to draw on other programs that have hired DEI directors and published their objectives and goals. The University of Texas, Austin DEI director will be responsible for hiring, promotion, raises of staff, and instructors. This person can override the dean of the college and boards. They will audit faculty salary differences and monitor and promote research that enhances diversity, equity, and inclusion. Who contribute to diversity. They write, it is not enough to simply hire faculty members who contribute to a diverse faculty, but that it is equally important to retain and promote them. The University of California, Berkeley infamously screened out more than 70 biology faculty applicants before their CV was considered based on a diversity statement. When I earned my doctorate, the value was on the quality of research, not some arbitrary group membership. This is the antithesis of seeking the highest educational value and should terrify any teacher or staff. I suspect one will respond that SHS is not a college and this is not what is intended, but on what basis can one make that claim? What document can one point to? This DEI experiment has been run by Adena High School when in 2013, they were ranked the best in the state. They adopted a SJW K-12 curriculum, including a DEI-like director. 4 years later, in 2017, Adena School District dropped to one of the worst in the state. The greatest impact was for Black students in high school, where their math scores dropped from 31% to 14% proficiency and reading from 52% to 40%. Thus, marginalized students are worse off after the implementation of a DEI program. Based on the most recent ODE data for Sherwood School District, 100% of American Indian, Asian, Black, and Pacific Islander were on-time graduation, whereas 95% of multiracial and 97% of white were. So what exactly is the problem the DEI person is meant to eradicate? Because diversity, equity, and inclusion must include everyone from Sherwood, and there are no governing principles, goals, objectives, or minimal standards, I recommend to the board that you, as representative of the Sherwood stakeholders and community, develop, publish, and approve the DEI Strategy Action Plan. I respectfully request you add this as an action item. Melissa Loss, Sherwood. I'm writing to urge you to participate in the weekly asymptomatic COVID testing for students in our district. This program will be a vital source of information about the spread and severity of COVID amongst our student community. I am also urging you to adopt a masking policy for our elementary students to stay masked on the playground. While it is nearly impossible to enforce 6 feet of distance at all times on the playgrounds, we can at least have our students stay in their masks to curb the spread of COVID. Thank you for creating the COVID dashboard for our district. This information is helpful for us as a family to understand the true impact of COVID amongst the district students. It's helping us understand the real risks of COVID from within our community and make choices based on that data. Thank you. Michael Highland, Southwest Willamette, Sherwood. I wanted to express my thanks to the district around the creation of the COVID-19 information and dashboard page and for the recent adoptions around human health and sexual health. I appreciate that our curriculum encourages abstinence, but is not abstinence only. It gives parents the opportunity to review and opt out of specific lessons if they so choose. The teachings around sexual health, substance abuse, inclusion, and diversity will help our students make informed, responsible, and caring choices. In particular, we cannot be effective in our efforts around anti-bullying and suicide prevention if we don't teach the values of diversity, inclusion, and acceptance. 2 years ago, in a public meeting around the approval process for the Great Body Shop curriculum, Lake Oswego Superintendent Laura de la Cruz stated, "My leadership for equity means that I believe in the inclusion and the rights of students of all abilities, disabilities, races, ethnicities, genders, gender identities, sexual orientation, and languages." So in other words, when I say each and every child, I'm talking about every student in our care, and that for me is not a political statement. It's a statement of humanity, and it's where I lead from. As a community member, I could not say it any better. I think this is where we should all lead from as well. Thanks again to the district for your work in these areas and to the board members for your service. I hope you will support these goals. Dr. Stephen Remsin, Handley Street. I would like to thank the district for creating the COVID-19 dashboard to help keep the Sherwood community informed. As parent of an elementary school student, I also cannot express enough thanks to the tireless efforts of our teachers, administrators, and staff to adhere to COVID-19 safety protocols. Your efforts have almost certainly kept in-school transmission and required out-of-school quarantines relatively low. Thank you. To continue to help our kids and staff stay safe and in school, I again urge the board and district to sign our schools up for 3 OHA-sponsored COVID-19 testing in schools programs, especially the asymptomatic student screen program for our younger student populations that are not currently eligible for vaccination. A recently published pilot study in the Journal of the American Medical Association demonstrated the value of weekly asymptomatic screening of elementary staff and students by saliva PCR testing. The research suggested that as many as 9 in 10 student cases and 7 in 10 staff cases may be missed by conventional reporting mechanisms, which Sherwood schools are currently relying on alone to identify COVID-19 cases. Many of our neighboring school districts in Washington County have signed up for these testing programs and have already begun testing and monitoring of their staff and students. Please also give Sherwood parents the freedom of choice to have their kids participate in this free opt-in testing program. Thank you.
Dale House, Yorkshire Way. I could not let October go by without recognizing that it's Dyslexia Awareness Month. Dyslexia is the most common cause of reading, writing, and spelling difficulties. Anywhere from 6 to 20% of the population is thought to be dyslexic. In a district of around 5,000 children, that is anywhere from 300 to 1,000 children affected by this very real learning difference. 74% of children who display reading problems in the 3rd grade remain poor readers into adulthood. In 3rd grade, we switch our focus from learning to read to reading to learn. Reading is the most fundamental skill acquired in the young elementary years. It is the gateway to the rest of a child's education. Children who lack strong reading skills may also struggle with math, science, social studies, and even the arts. Reading failure is the most commonly shared characteristic of juvenile justice offenders. Reading has so many benefits. It exercises the brain, it improves reading concentration, it practices using a child's memory, it can challenge critical thinking skills, it helps with analytical skills, it exposes children to the world around them, it develops empathy, and it makes children better in all aspects of the school environment. With all of these benefits, why as Sherwood School District are we leaving so many children behind? I have a guess at that answer, because we are on the balanced literacy train and have been for well over a decade now. It is a flawed approach that promotes guessing based on context and other clues, and it implies that if children are surrounded by books and are read to on a regular basis, then they will learn to read. This is just not the case. 40% of children will learn to read easily no matter how they are taught. 35% will learn to read with significant support, and the other 25% will learn to read with intensive support. All children need is direct instruction. We should be teaching using a structured literacy approach, then nobody, not one child, would fall through the cracks. The science is there to support a structured literacy program. It has been for years. Explicit, systematic programs work. The reading wars began in the year 2000, and our children are still fighting the war here in our district, here in Sherwood, Oregon in 2021. I speak with numerous families who have a struggling 4th or 5th grader, and it is heartbreaking. These kids have fallen through the cracks of a flawed reading program here in Sherwood. Reading well is fundamental to developing a good self-image. How do you think you feel as a 4th or 5th grader who cannot read well and access all the material you're presented with 6 hours a day at your local public school? I will tell you, it leads to isolation, discouragement, and sometimes even behavioral problems. I know this is not an overnight fixable problem, but so many families are footing the bill for specialized tutoring, upwards of $500 a month, because we are not doing our job teaching children to read in the critical early years. We must do better, Sherwood.
Time. Steve Robertson, Stellar Drive, Sherwood. The National School Board Association has recently asked President Biden to use the full power of federal law enforcement and domestic intelligence agencies in response to perceived threats of violence to school boards across the country. They specifically asked for help from the Department of Justice, the FBI, Homeland Security, U.S. Secret Service, and the U.S. National Threat Assessment Center. This is an outrageous reaction to parents who are trying to voice their heartfelt concerns about policies within their local schools. While some parents may have occasionally crossed the line requiring law enforcement help in certain situations, there's absolutely no reason to escalate this to a federal level and treat concerned parents as if they were a domestic terror threat. This is no way to treat parents who are only trying to advocate for what's best for their children. Is the board a member of the NSBA? If so, would you please renounce the NSBA and sever your ties? Or does this board agree that we should use the full force of the federal government to potentially investigate and harass parents who forcefully voice their opposition to local school boards and their policies? If the board wants to establish trust and build a strong working relationship with parents, they can't just ignore what the NSBA has done. Please make a statement regarding your position on this matter. And that concludes public comment.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to information and discussion portion of our meeting, and I will turn the mic over to Mr. Rose to tell us about a budget committee vacancy.
Thank you, Chair Hecker, Dr. Cordy, members of the board. This evening, we are here to announce that the position 2 for the Sherwood School District Budget Committee, currently held by Jake Brandel, is at the end of that term. It's a 3-year term, and has expired at the end of June 2021. And so we're looking for a individual to fill that position on a new 3-year term ending in 2024. We open the applications at this time. They're due by November 12th. And then interviews will be December 8th. And at that board meeting, we'd ask that you select a new member of the budget committee. And for those that are listening, maybe the budget committee is a group of 5 public individuals who apply for and each serve kind of rotating 3-year terms. They sit side by side with the board as a overall budget committee. And that group will actually receive the budget message from the superintendent and the proposed budget during the spring. They go through a process of where they operate as the voices for the community and being able to ask questions. And then they approve, we hope they approve the budget, which then gets passed to the board for final adoption. So it's a critical component of our overall budgeting process, and one that we take, frankly, quite seriously. And so that application process requires a full application and interview before selection by the 5 of you, again, at the December 8th meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Doesn't look like it. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, the next item up for information and discussion relates to the superintendent's goals. And just a little background, each fall, the superintendent's goals are determined based on the needs of the district and the board. And then throughout the year, the superintendent gives periodic updates to all of us on how those goals are being met and what's going on behind the scenes. And then in the spring, late spring, summer, sometimes it's always a really difficult time to do it, but the board comes together in a formal evaluation process of the superintendent, specifically related to those goals. So a little bit of background, and I will turn it over now to Dr. Cordy to tell you about her goals.
All right. Thank you, Chair Hecker. Good evening again, board members. So as Chair Hecker and I started engaging in conversations around priorities and identifying those priorities for the school year, there were lots of different areas that emerged. And through those conversations and really thinking about what the focus is and should be within the district and alongside you as a board, we identified 3 professional goals for this year, 2 of which are larger in scope and one that is certainly more narrow in scope, but very relevant and important to the work. So hopefully you all have seen those in your packets. They're also projected here, so I certainly won't read through them. But I would like to talk a little bit about each one. So goal number 1, this one really addresses the need that has been identified around providing background information and knowledge to a board that has the majority of new members. And so this again is meeting that need that was expressed by the board in our August work session and team building time together. And so this really emerged as front and center. Number 1 professional goal is for me to lead with my team to create those opportunities to provide that information and answer those questions for you. So that is the essence of goal number 1. Those conversations happening primarily in work sessions, but not solely that way. So I guess I'll pause and answer any questions that you have about goal number 1 before I go through the other 2, if you have any questions. Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to number 2. So goal number 2 is all about the district's strategic plan. And hopefully you saw where we really discussed the process that we engaged in with multiple stakeholders, different forums, different surveys throughout 2019 and leading up to February 2020. And it was a very collaborative process, including many community members. And it was right at the end of that process that then the pandemic hit. And so I noted here in my lead up to the goal that it was at that point that my team and I had to really redirect every ounce of energy in creating comprehensive distance learning models and all that was involved with that. And so the strategic plan certainly was not front and center over the course of that last school year, and it needs to be again, because this is the work that really guides the district. And so we are, the recommendation here is to re-engage in some conversations with staff and administrators to just fine tune the work that was done by those large stakeholder groups in the winter of 2019 and 2020. And then once we've edited and made some slight revisions, bring that strategic plan to you. For some of you, it might be new. For others, a reminder of that great work that was done. And then the measurements that we'll hold ourselves accountable to, and that you'll hold me and my team accountable to really trying to meet those goals within the strategic plan. And then my commitment to come before you quarterly to with my team to share what our progress is around each of those areas. So that is what goal 2 is all about. What questions can I answer about goal 2?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say I'm really, really pleased to see goal 2 on here. A lot of, from my perspective, a lot of what has enabled this district to continue to grow up through the ranks of educational achievement and respond to what our data has shown us has been through a really solid strategic plan that had a ton of accountability built into it around what are we implementing, what changes do we need to make, and how we do that in a public and transparent way. And I am really glad to see this back here. A lot of that work that went into that strategic plan was parallel with and informed by the public work we did around Student Investment Act investments and the public process. So they informed each other. So there's a ton of public input into that product that I think dusting it off, bringing it back to us, and then being able to engage on how do we continue the work to keep Sherwood an excellent district and continue to raise that bar. That I'm really, really pleased to see that on your list of superintendent goals this year.
Thank you. And the third and final goal, this is one that is more myopic, if you will, than others, but very, very important and really linked to the topic that we talked more about in our work session this evening around safety and security. You know, a really integral piece of that is our school resource officer. That position has been vacant since April of 2020. And the essence of this goal is to, from my position as superintendent, partner with the Sherwood Police Department to create an inclusive process to select and then onboard a new SRO. And so that is what this third goal is all about. And again, thank you to Director Nyangaro for being a board member who was a part of the recent interviews in that process. What questions can I answer about this?
Is the goal, so the goal for this year is to hire one, and then maybe explore having more than one, or just this year one and then go from there?
The goal for this year is to fill the existing vacancy and fill that one.
I ask a quick question. I think you're going to jump ahead to where you're at with your goals, but I was just curious, with regards to this one, where we are at, since it sounds like some interviews were already conducted.
Yeah, this one, we have started in on it. The interviews happened Monday afternoon, and that's all we have to report right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cordy. We will turn now to Mr. Bennett, who's going to update us on Division 22 assurances.
Too much stuff for a small podium. Thank you, Chair Hector, Chair Hecker, Superintendent Cordy, Board of Directors. Good evening. Tonight, we'll be talking with you about Division 22 assurances. You'll learn a little bit about what Division 22 assurances are, a little bit about the process, and how the district is doing regarding its compliance with what's included in those assurances. So, Oregon Division 22 administrative insurances are really the main mechanism of accountability for school districts with compliance on a growing number of requirements. It's the way we report to our board and our community where we stand with this. Provides transparency to the community. And perhaps most importantly, it allows us to reflect on areas we're out of compliance and in compliance and get assistance from ODE if we needed to come into compliance. A new initiative generally come every year out of the legislative session, which we're required to comply with. Just some recent examples would be a minimum number of PE minutes that are required, suicide prevention plan and policy, the K-12 health and comprehensive psych ed plan that is up for action tonight, and an Every Student Belong Act, things of that nature. They come on a regular basis to us, and we're required to comply with them and to report our status. There have been a couple of changes to the process for those board members who have been here for a while. It used to be that we reported, and it was sort of an odd structure. I think the way it's done now makes more sense. It used to be that we reported in February. So this year we would report in February of 2022 on our compliance for the 2020-21 school year. So a school year that happened months before. So ODE actually changed it. So we now have to report by November 1st on last year how we did. So we're talking about tonight, we're talking about last year. The other thing that the new rule did was actually clarified that we're talking about last school year, not this current school year when we're going through this. It also provided some clarity about the need to report to a board in an open meeting. That wasn't necessarily the case before. And it requires all districts to use the same report template. Before we could use any report we wanted, and it's now makes sense to have one consistent report that's clear to the community so that they know exactly where we stand. So they've done a nice job of sort of changing the process a little bit in a positive way. We talked about new standards coming into play fairly regularly. These are 3 new standards that are in place for us this year. One around Ready School Safe Learners is only for 1 year. And there's 3 new ones that you can see there that came into effect for the 2021 school year. And there are 3 steps in this process we have to do to be in compliance. We have to report to the board, which we're doing tonight, by November 1st. We have to post our community report on our website by November 1st also, which we'll do after this board meeting. And then we have to submit the form and a different document to ODE by November 15th. So we need to do those 3 things to come into compliance. And all of this, as I said before, used to take place in February and March, and that's moved to October and November. So when it comes to the district's compliance, we are in compliance in a vast majority of the standards. We have a few we're working on. This is another change to the process, actually, that isn't in the OAR, but it's in ODE's process. It used to be that you were either in compliance or you were out of compliance, and there was only 2. It was a binary choice. Now there's really 3 options. You're either in compliance, you're implementing action that was approved by ODE, because sometimes it's a multi-year plan to come back. An example, for example, curriculum adoptions. I don't know of a district that's in full compliance with curriculum adoptions, and so we've all submitted plans to the states about what we're doing going forward. Or you're out of compliance, meaning simply you haven't reported to ODE yet that you're out of compliance, and so that there is no approved action yet to implement. You're still implementing corrective action, but it's not approved. So we'll go over the ones we're out of compliance on now. One is that the reporting deadline changed last year, and then they actually clarified the rule this year because so many districts actually missed that deadline. We found out the deadline changed, or I found out the deadline changed the day we missed filing the reports. We ended up reporting to the board 2 weeks later. We were 18 days late on the report. So this is one area we're out of compliance, is we didn't file our Division 22 assurances on time during last school year. And so this year we've corrected that. We're submitting, we'll have everything done, and we are on track to be in compliance this year. So that's one area where we're out of compliance and on track to come back in. The second, we've talked about this with you before, and we got a lengthy presentation on this at the last regular meeting of the board, our K-12 health plan and human sexuality education plan, and that's currently pending board approval. Should that be adopted this evening, we're all ready to go and we'll be in full compliance on that one as well. The next one I mentioned before, and this one's a little bit more complex why we're not in compliance, and most districts are in a similar position. So with lack of funding for several years coming out of the Great Recession, we did not have the funding to adopt instructional materials. Once the capital improvement bond passed in 2016, we started to adopt materials fairly rapidly. But it's worth noting that adopting instructional materials is a pretty lengthy process. It normally takes us 1 to 2 years, in some cases a little bit more than that. And it's a process we really want to get right. It's partially about not only the money. You can easily spend $500,000 on an adoption or more than that for a K-12 adoption. But it's also about just getting the right thing. You're talking about time of students over a 7-year period and the learning and the staff training you provide. So we take our time and do this right. That's part of it. And then there's a teacher capacity issue, and it applies more at the elementary. And the place we're out of compliance on this is we are behind in adopting elementary math and elementary social studies. Those are the 2 subjects that are holding us up right now. But in a 3-year period in our elementary schools, we adopted new math materials, new reading materials, new writing materials, and put one-to-one devices in. And so that was so much learning on teachers. Then we did health immediately on the following year after that. And so to have mixed in, to be in full compliance, we would have also had to adopt science and social studies curriculum within that same time frame. And there's just almost no way a teacher can learn all those new things at one time. So that's also part of the reason. And then the pandemic played into it. So we have submitted a plan to ODE to come into compliance, and we are implementing that plan. In fact, just this week we launched, when I say we, I mean the team, the Tosas and Marlene launched an elementary social studies adoption and a world languages adoption, which is an adoption that was scheduled for last year, but we delayed it by a year for this year on an approval for ODE. And we anticipate to be in full compliance by fall of 2023. And we're fortunate to have the bond funds to do this. Not other districts have those funds necessarily. So putting that in the bond was a huge thing. So we will come into compliance on this one. I just wanted to give you a little bit of details about why we're behind on this and what that looked like. The next one we are behind on is a board approved plan around prevention in drugs and alcohol. So we're currently meeting most of the requirements of the OAR. The things we're out of compliance on, really having a board adopted plan, we need to polish everything up and package it and bring it to you. The good news is we're doing the things around providing the education to students that is required by the OAR. We're missing the plan. And the one element that we are also missing that needs to be in the plan is a public information campaign. We have not had an intentional enough public information campaign. And so you'll see that in the plan, and the team is working to put that in place so that it will be ready to go for the 2022-23 school year. And the final one, we've talked to you a little bit about this one as well. As you know, we adopted a suicide prevention curriculum earlier. So we have adopted we have a suicide prevention policy. We've developed the plan that the policy calls for, and we're in compliance in those areas. Where we were out of compliance was we needed to post the plan to our website. We needed to link it to our student handbook and our staff handbook, and that was the part we missed. So we have done those things. We are now in compliance, but those weren't done during last school year, so we have to report to OD that we're out of compliance. But that's one of the benefits of this process is you go through. And it's fairly lengthy to read all of these OARs. The full report of the community is included in the packet if you want to take a look at it. But it's a fairly lengthy process to go through and read all these OARs and pull out the details. But the value in doing it is that you catch things like this where it's a fairly detailed, nuanced thing. You've done 90% of the work or 95% of the work, but getting that finished and staying in compliance. And so this one's done, we are in compliance, but we have to report that we're out of compliance because again, it was for last year and it wasn't done until this school year. So that is the nature of the report after this meeting, well, not after this meeting, but this week we'll post our report to the community on the district website, and we'll submit our paperwork to ODE, and then we'll get to work on coming back into compliance on the ones that we have to work on. Any questions?
Dr. Adamson?
Yeah, is it possible when we post the report to the community, even if we don't necessarily need to include this in our report that we file with ODE, is it possible for us to note that we are now, as of October 11th, October 13th, 2021, we are now fully in compliance with the suicide prevention plan, and depending on action later this evening, potentially fully in compliance with that. It's just so that if the public does look at that, they can see from us, this report is about last school year, but we have in fact corrected these items to date.
We can note that in the plan, and the language that I submitted in the board did not make any assumptions, that I submitted in the packet did not make any assumptions about the health plan being approved. That's part of the reason of posting it afterward, is if it is improved, and now that we're in compliance on the suicide prevention plan, we have to report our status in terms of the work we're doing. And so we'll make sure and include those when we post it, as well as to ODE.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I think I'm still up. Is that correct?
You're up for the next two, yes.
Okay.
So we're moving on to action items. So
Perfect.
we're going to hear about the Orbit curriculum.
I came prepared. So as you know, or perhaps you don't know, just a little history on the history of Orbit. So Orbit is our online or virtual program that we've offered to students who want to learn in a virtual environment during the pandemic. In the spring of 2021, we conducted a survey of our families to gauge interest in an online model for this school year. And the demand for that model was so low, it just wasn't financially feasible to make any sense to run. At that time, case rates were falling, and things were looking like they were going to be different than the school year we started this year. And so the district made a decision at that time to not offer an online program for families. As case rates began to rise over the summer, in mid-August, the district decided to launch an online program to meet the needs of those families who felt safer learning from home. The option we chose was to go with the Oregon Virtual Education and Orbed. Part of the reason we did that, it was something we could launch fairly quickly. It used the same curriculum that other districts around us are using. We have about just over 100 students using that curriculum right now in grades K through 12. However, even though there's only 100 students in there, to comply with Division 22 assurances, the board needs to officially adopt Orbed's curriculum. So one other benefit of Orbed is there's a technical process that that has to be gone through to ensure that the curriculum with Florida Virtual Academy aligns to the state standards. And one of the benefits of using Orbed is the staff of the Northwest Regional ESD has done all of that work for us. And so the checklists that are required are on file in the district office. That's one of the things that's required. And you can read about the Oregon Virtual Academy, all the details in the summary if you're interested. But tonight we're putting that up for first read, and we'll come back in November for official and ask you to adopt that policy, or excuse me, adopt that curriculum. Any questions about that?
If a person would like to take a look at the curriculum that's available at the district office?
We can find a way to make that available. If people are interested, they should contact me directly.
Thank you.
Okay. And it's still you, Mr. Bennett, on
Okay.
the next poll.
Okay, the next one. Last month, we brought to the board for first read an updated policy, IGAI, Human Sexuality, AIDS, HIV, Sexually Transmitted Diseases, Health Education. Tonight, we're bringing that same policy up for second read and adoption.
Is there a motion?
There's a motion, Madam Chair. I move that we adopt policy IGAI, human sexuality, AIDS, HIV, sexually transmitted diseases, health education update as presented.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the motion carries 4-1.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll move on. Ms. Carroll, looks like you're up in regard to the Sherwood K-12 Comprehensive Health Plan.
All right, thank you, Chair Hecker, Dr. Cordy, board members. As you may remember, we spent the work session about a month ago reviewing the comprehensive K-12 health instruction plan. And tonight I am here to put it up for second read and adoption.
Any questions, comments? Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the Sherwood School District K-12 Comprehensive Health Plan of Instruction as presented.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion carries 4-1. Thank you. Okay, we'll move right along back to Mr. Rose in regard to inter-district transfers.
Thank you, Chair Hecker. As the board may recall, last month in a work session, we discussed kind of school funding 101, and one of the areas we talked about was inter-district transfers. So these are transfers between other districts and ours. On June 15th of this year, the board opened 30 slots at the middle school level in a lottery basis. We did not fill those slots, and this evening we're coming to you asking to reopen those slots at 10 students per grade level, 6th, 7th, and 8th, on an open until filled status. And those students would be eligible to stay with us through middle school and high school, subject to meeting our behavioral and attendance requirements that are set forth in the inter-district transfer agreement. We'd ask that you take that action.
Any questions, comments?
No.
Okay, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we continue the open slots that we opened earlier this summer, and that we reopen 30 slots at the middle school, 10 in each grade, in on an open until filled basis.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any other comments, questions, discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. So with that, we've come to the conclusion of tonight's board meeting. We welcome you back in 2 weeks for our next board work session on October 27th. Thank you. And we are adjourned.